She is managing attention, looking around the room, making sure that no one has their computers opened on their telephone. She's communicating respect non-verbally, saying to herself, I respect you. She looks around. She's in the power stance. She's finding friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name, feel the love. Start your speech.
My name is Caitlin Ray.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hi. Imagine how disconcerted you would be if you flung open a door only to be met with a life-size poster of Barack Obama staring right back at you. For those of you who enjoy getting a laugh out of embarrassing moments on YouTube of people being caught in these kinds of moments, my reaction probably would have been welcomed material. It turns out that unbeknownst to me, our coach, I played tennis here for the school, our coach had put his life-size poster in our locker room to provide us added motivation to try to win a national title, since NCAA champions get to go to the White House each spring. So while President Obama certainly provided fuel to our athletic goals last season, his administration's monetary policy is typically regarded with much less positivity and significantly more disdain in today's political climate. In fact, the state of our economy is often the favored source of ammunition for nightly talk show hosts and critics. For example, John Macon, an economist and scholar for the American Enterprise Institute, was quoted in May of 2013 as jokingly saying, quote, "The stock market has predicted 3 of the last 0 sustainable economic expansions." So we must ask ourselves, what does our surging stock market truly tell us about the overall health of the U.S. economy, and why has something so historically valuable in predicting future economic growth suddenly become so useless? Today, I'm going to tell you what our surging stock market suggests about the overall health of our economy. I argue that what is good for Wall Street is not necessarily good for Main Street, and that a surging stock market may not actually lead to overall economic growth. I will give you 3 pieces of evidence for why this is so. Number 1, the unemployment rate has remained consistently high during this period. Secondly, the monetary policy pursued by the Federal Reserve and the subsequent misuse of the funds and low interest rates provided to it by American corporations. And finally, the anemic annual percentage growth rate of the GDP. But why should this matter to you? In fact, I asked myself the same thing last Tuesday night upon returning home and realizing I had picked perhaps the most boring topic, the economy. But it ended up being a blessing in disguise because I realized that whether it is through our future 401k packages, pension plans, or offers by future employers to buy shares of company stock, we all have a stake in how the stock market performs and what it may mean for overall economic stability. So while historically a surging stock market has meant overall economic health, we can confidently say, due to the last 6 years, au contraire. So let's look at these 3 pieces of evidence and figure out how we have gotten to where we are today. Before we dive in to my 3 reasons for the discrepancy between Main Street and Wall Street, it is crucial to do a quick conceptual and statistical relation to the Great Recession of 2007 to early 2009. These values were obtained from the Yahoo Finance historical records. So on October 11th, 2007, the Dow hit an all-time high of 14,198. It began a long and precipitous decline that would finally hit bottom at 6,469 points in March of 2009, marking a 54% decline in value from that 2007 high. During this time, the Fed flooded the financial markets with liquidity and low interest rates that they hoped American corporations would use to stimulate the economy and provide more jobs. Now, the Fed's monetary policy was successful to the extent that the Dow soared. Between March and December of 2009, it rose to 10,428, added an additional 1,000 points in 2010, and between 2012 and today, it's added 6,250 points and stands at an all-time high of near 18,000. So in other words, between March 2009 and today, the stock market has staged one of the greatest bull markets in history, with the Dow rising 180%. But why has that prosperity failed to trickle down to you and me? The following 3 reasons will explain why. First, unemployment has remained consistently high. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in December of 2009, the unemployment rate was 9.9%. The following year, it was 9.4%, meaning a drop of only 0.5%. Meanwhile, the stock market has surged almost 80%. Again, in 2011, 2012, and 2013, our unemployment rate decreased slightly while our stock market rose between 15 and 30%. In other words, while stock market investors have gotten rich over the past 6 years, the middle class and working Americans have struggled to keep the jobs they have with limited prospects of finding new ones. Secondly, the Federal Reserve has provided low interest rates and liquidity to American corporations, and they have not used that capital to improve technology, train employees, and create new jobs, but rather to line the pockets of already wealthy CEOs, increase dividends for shareholders, and buy back shares of their own stock. So, in other words, according to Jeff Kleintop of LPL Financial Group, in a December 2013 article, he said just more bond buying by the Fed is not enough to lift valuations from current levels to propel further gains. In addition, Ezra Klein of the LA Times in 2007 was quoted as saying, "So the stock market is giving us a great indicator of how the best off are doing and very little about how the majority of Americans are doing." And so finally, the anemic annual percentage growth rate of the GDP is my final reason. In the face of one of the greatest bull markets in history, the GDP had actually contracted 2.8% in 2009 and has risen only 2.3% annually in 2012, 2013, and 2014. However, historically, in periods of economic expansion, the GDP should be rising in the 3 to 6% range. This simply has not happened. So, in summary, I have given you 3 reasons why the prosperity on Wall Street has failed to trickle down to Main Street. The money the Federal Reserve has thrown at American corporations has done nothing for middle and working class Americans and absolutely everything for the CEOs that it has made enormously wealthy. There should be no doubt in this room that a soaring stock market translates into a healthy overall U.S. economy. The bottom line is that we should be seeing huge job growth and expanding GDP and a far less anemic annual percentage growth rate. So, while President Obama has definitely helped me in the athletic arena, I'm going to have a hard time walking past his post in our locker room without cringing until our government, the Federal Reserve, and American corporations adopt a new strategy and decide to start restoring the balance between Wall Street and Main Street. Until then, the soaring stock market is not going to be able to be a good indicator of economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, stay up front. This is where you get your feedback now. Back up just a little bit. Yeah, good. Thank you. And the way we do it is we go around the room and we ask each individual to stand up and say one thing they like, and then another individual to stand up and say one thing that she could improve on. Let's start here.
Alright, so...
Start with your name.
Oh, okay, so my name is Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Hi. I feel like it was a really interesting speech, but I would recommend...
This is like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what you like.
Very interesting speech. Circled it back to your personal experience. That was amazing. And another thing that I liked was the fact that you related it to us and why we should care about the stock market when we're just students. That's something I really liked.
So she related it to us.
Yeah.
Try to make it significant to us. Thank you, Alan. Improvement?
I'm Shireen.
Start with your name, Shireen.
Yeah.
Hi, Shireen.
I think you could work on platform movement, so just walk a little.
Yeah.
So I can like distinguish the main points between your speech.
Good point, Shireen. Let's practice walking now. Come on, you can enter. We're just doing the critique. Thank you for respectfully waiting at the door, though. Did you go to Boulter?
Yeah.
Long walk, huh? Guess you don't check your email, huh?
I was already late, and then I was like, oh, and it's the wrong building.
We had a lively discussion on Paris and an announcement that we meet in the library next week, so don't come here next week. But this is our new permanent classroom. Praise the Lord. Yes, yes. Okay, good.
So we're practicing walking.
Let me see you walk now, and you say, my first point is, and you're going to take 3 steps to your right. So walk to the right. 1, 2, 3. Work the side of the room, talk and walk. Say, my first point is blah, 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 blah. You look and work the side of the room, still glancing over at Ben so you don't blow them off.
Got it.
But you still work this side of the room, give them extra special attention. Remember my metaphor was, these are all your children, you want to love them equally.
Okay.
Okay, now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to this side of the room. And work this side of the room, but still glance over at Alan.
Got it.
Okay, and now back to center for your third
Would you
point.
like us to do that, like finish a point here?
Yes.
Or, okay.
First point, second point, third point back at the center.
Okay, got it.
Yes. And do it in practice so it seems very natural to you as your, you won't, I'll do it when I get there. It'll be no big deal. You'll see it's not a big deal. One of the things while we're talking about what your body movement is doing is you're crossing your feet a lot with your legs when you're talking. You're not staying in the power stance position, Caitlin. So that's something you could do better. You went about 8 minutes and 15 seconds. So I'm going to be lenient on the first time, but remember to time your speeches, and you have 7 minutes and 15 seconds.
Okay.
And everyone take note of that and time your speeches and make sure you stay within the range that you're given. I loved your intro. It was personal, it was vivid, it was pictorial. Going to the White House, meeting President Obama, that was good, and the big picture, and it was the tennis team and all this. And you had a really smooth segue into the topic, so that wasn't abrupt. And sometimes I see that introductions go, oh, and let's go to the topic. And I want you all to note this on your outline. Repeat the question for emphasis, so your audience really knows what you're asking. So repeat the question. And then your thesis was excellent, and your preview was excellent, just as I wanted it. And your significance statement, as was suggested over here, was honest, and you thought, yes, why is this relevant to these students in the class? And you tried to make it so, and that was good. And you always want to do that in every speech that you give, okay? Now, on your main body, you let me say something about your history of the stock market. That was a little long, and I think that could have been shortened down so that we got to your main points better. On your first point about the economic expansion while the unemployment rate remains, a bit stagnant, and lots of people are dropping out of the job market completely and stuff, was a good best of times, worst of times kind of picture that you painted, and that was excellent. As I wrote down here, this was a moment you got out of the power stance and were crossing your legs as you were doing that. On your second point, you rightfully talked about how this has really helped the feds have really helped American corporations, but they have not really passed it along by hiring significantly more individuals and that sort of thing. So this was good analysis and good argumentation with good sources. My only suggestion, and remember it's too late for Caitlin but not for the rest of you, you'll want to fully cite your citation. So when you say Jeff Kleintop in Business Insider told us in December of 2013 that. And that fully tells us that you have a great source, a great business source, and it was real recent.
Okay.
And you're borrowing on the credibility of Jeff Kleintop and Ezra Klein and the New York Times to build your own credibility. And your third point for the GDP, little abstract, hard to... let me say one thing, by the way, and just a little hint for all of you. And you discovered this, Caitlin, the hard way. But in the old days of when we had an Extemp squad and we used to do it, my advice was to avoid economic topics for the very reason you articulated. Right. They're really hard to keep people interested. You can grab them with going to the White House and you drew them back with the White House, but in the middle, man, it's like, oh, GDP. Yeah, I'm going to sleep.
I know.
And so you did your best to kind of spice it up, Wall Street, Main Street, and had some good rhetoric in there. But I would recommend in choosing topics, choose topics that have some juice in them, some topics that you will have some personal stories that you can tell. I wouldn't have even minded had you been able to insert, I'm making this up now, but for example, my dad lost his job, and we were and it was really tight for a while. My mother was still working, thank God, but then he finally got another job. But, I experienced this personally, and it was very bad. Just a personal, quick little thing like that would be very memorable. And I don't know if you've gotten into the sticky text yet, but we want to not forget the emotions are one of the things that help make a speech memorable and help keep our audience interested. Yeah. Your summary was good. Your conclusion was fine. And your tie-back was excellent. Your goals. You said, don't rush, speak slowly and concisely. Include the audience. Don't simply talk at them. Be extemporaneous and conversational. Achieve natural movements, arm movements from left to right. How'd it go?
That didn't go so well, but I foresaw that would be a challenge for me.
Yeah, one of the problems, Caitlin, was with the way you're holding your hands together now. You held them together a lot like it. You let them be by your side, but you were holding the card too often together with both hands. And you really didn't need the card that much. You knew this speech pretty well. I was pretty impressed, especially for an economic topic. You knew your statistics and your facts fairly well. So for the first speech, that was very impressive. So you did a nice job, and thank you for breaking the ice.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, do we have another volunteer? Okay, thank you. Hang on just a second. Okay, let me get you focused. All right. Class etiquette. Telephones away. No texting in class. Thank you. Computers closed. She stands before you. You're not in the power stance. Feet wider apart. She's managing attention.
Before we start, actually, if
what?
you type in my name onto YouTube, is this going to come up?
No.
No. Okay, that was my only concern. I don't.
No, it will.
You
have to type. You have to type in. You have to type in my name.
Okay.
UCLA Debate Union. I'm going to give you a secret code that you type in, and then the whole class comes up in a string. That's how it works.
Okay.
Is that cool?
That seems okay.
Is that fine with you?
Yes.
No, your name's not on this in the headline or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
I'm going to give you time signals. Have you timed this?
Yes, I have. It should
Great.
be 6 minutes and 50 seconds.
And so when great. And when I and you have 7:15, so I'll be giving you signals
also, so you
accordingly.
don't forget anything.
So that the 15 is the little extra time. Okay, so she's managing attention. I'm not taking this off your time. She's texting again.
No,
Okay, put it away. Oh, she's putting it away. Oh, she's doing the stopwatch for me. Thank you. Very nice. Communicating respect non-verbally, saying to yourself, I respect my audience. Say, I respect you to yourself. Finding friendly eyes near the front and the center that you can lock onto to start your speech. Say your name, feel the love. Start your speech.
My name is Emma Rennick.
Hi, Emma.
Hello, everyone. So, what if I were to tell you that I had a piece of ice, and that I was going to put that piece of ice into the oven and turn that oven on to 375 degrees and keep that piece of ice in the oven? And then I were to tell you that I had a goal, and that my goal was to make sure that that piece of ice was going to come out of the oven intact in a solid form of water as a piece of ice. Now, according to the normal properties of water, you'd probably call me crazy, right? I'm here today to tell you that asking if the European Union will reach their 2030 emissions goals is like asking if that piece of ice will come back out of the oven as a piece of ice. It's not going to happen. The European Union has made a goal to reduce their emissions by 40%, which they hope to do through renewable energy and energy efficiency. Now, though one can never be too certain about the future, I'm here today to discuss 3 main reasons as to why this goal will not be met. The first of which is their flexibility clause, which will effectively allow them to redact their original goal. The second of which is the inaccurate comparison to their 2020 goals. And the third, which I find to be the most important, is their emphasis on interconnectivity, which will effectively de-emphasize their energy efficiency goal. Now, you may be asking yourself, how is this important to me in my life? I don't live in Europe. I wish I lived in Europe, but I don't. And you need look no further than the fact that our little ice cube of an Earth is in the oven, and it is singing a sweet tune of "We are all in this together, people." Though, if you're looking for a more specific reason as to how this affects you as an American, you should look to the United Nations meeting, which will occur this coming December in 2015 in France. Here, the nations will come together to create global emissions goals. And the French president has stated that the European Union's emissions goals for 2013 aim to send a message to the biggest contributors of emissions, namely the United States and China. Therefore, you should care because the United States has been called out. And I believe that this is a reasonable claim. Now, the United Nations meeting brings us to my first point, that the European Union has set this goal with a very specific flexibility clause. This flexibility clause will allow them to go back to their original 40% and reduce it if they feel it's necessary. And they said that this is going to be based on how the United Nations meeting goes in December. Therefore, we need to look at this not necessarily as a 40% that they're necessarily trying to reach, but rather as a statement that they're making to the countries who are the biggest contributors. The countries that comprise the European Union only contribute 1/10 of the world's emissions, where countries such as the United States and China contribute 1/3. Therefore, it's not a hard and fast goal, but rather a general statement, which means that they may not actually meet it. My second point is that they have been comparing their goals to their 2020 emissions goals, which they've already met. Big pat on the back for the European Union. However, their 2020 goals were met by buying out the emissions of other countries. Therefore, they didn't change the infrastructure within their own countries to reduce emissions, but rather had other countries change their infrastructure. And their 2030 goals state that all emissions reductions must come from internal reductions. So though they've met these 2020 goals, it's not likely that they will meet their 2030 goals. Business Europe, the European Union Employers Organization, has said that the same effort to reduce emissions will have to be made in 10 years that has been made in 30. Outlook good? I think not. My third point, which is the most important reason that these goals will not be met, is that a lot of these countries that are in the European Union are currently dependent on Russia for their energy sources. Philippe Dumas from the European Geothermal Energy Council has stated that 34.5% of crude oil and 31.5% of gas has come from Russia, which in turn weakens their geopolitical influence. Therefore, the European Union has created an interconnectivity initiative in which they hope to connect the countries that are in the Union through an energy grid to reduce this dependence on Russia and create energy security within the Union. Jessica Jewell at the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis has said that these short-term pulls towards energy connectivity will in turn reduce energy efficiency, as they are not working to build new infrastructure that is renewable energy as they had originally stated in their goals for energy efficiency reduction. However, she also states that this long-term interconnectedness will decarbonize the region as a whole, and as they begin to rely on each other. In summary, this interconnectedness initiative, as well as an inaccurate comparison to 2020 goals, as well as the original emissions standards in the flexibility clause, will not allow the European Union to reduce their energy by 40% that they had originally hoped. However, with this being said, I believe that their focus on long-term energy efficiency is something that countries such as the United States and China should look for. Our countries and countries like China are currently looking for short-term energy efficiency goals. And though the European may not meet their goals in the next 15 years as they had hoped, these long-term goals are something for us to aspire to. Our country in particular needs to realize that the ice cube is melting. Thank you.
Thank you. 636.
Positive or negative?
We start with the positive always. Can you back up a little? Yeah, thank you. Here we go.
My name's Asra. Teresa for you.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi. I really loved your confidence and your projection. I don't know if you have any acting, but it reminded me of a monologue. And you got my attention right away, so your energy was really good throughout. So.
Yeah, there should be like a little passion underneath it too, didn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Improvement.
Hi, my name is Glenn.
Hi, Glenn.
Something that probably improves the movement because you're there a lot of times, but you're not there. But I mean, it's hard in front, you know, like when you speak and then you try to move. It's kind of like it's hard for me especially. Try to move around.
Yeah, you're going to see that you were supposed to move 3 times. You moved about 60 times. And you were pacing. It's called pacing. It's very distracting, Emma. So just stay there and we'll have you practice walking just the 3 times. So let me see you walk to the right. 1, 2, 3. Stand and deliver. Work this side of the room. Glance over there. Still work this side of the room. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. But still cheat yourself forward, facing front. 5. And work this side of the room. Glance over there. And then 3 steps back to the center. 1, 2, 3. Back to center, and then you're fine. One thing I want you to practice when you when you're walking, back up just a little bit, please. When you're walking is remember not to cross your legs first in the steps. Lead with that foot and lead with that foot in the direction that you're walking. Well, okay, let's talk about your speech. You started with this cute little vivid picture of ice cubes in ovens, and it was very vivid and very weird and disconcerting and unlikely, and you tied back to that. So that worked nicely as an attention grabber, and that was fine. You were asked to address the question, will the European Union be able to reduce gas emissions enough to reach its goal by 2030? Like a little more emphasis on the question so we really know what it is, repeating it and in repeating it, underlying certain words. Will they be able to reduce enough to meet their goals by 2030? Your goal is that your point, and when you state your thesis, instead an emphatic not meet their goals, and you talked about the flexibility clause and the inaccurate comparison 2020 and the interconnectivity initiative. Now, I think that you could have done a little better job on your significant statement of selling this to the audience, and you could have talked about, the dangers of global warming as it's commonly expressed in the mass media, and the way people are being scared by the fact that the ice caps are melting and Florida is going to be inundated, and UCLA is going to be underwater shortly, and all this stuff. More of the people that are into the fear mongering or the danger. They want to they want people to think there's an imminent danger, and so maybe some more of the research and rhetoric from those people would have helped get your audience more interested in, climate change. Yeah, I've heard of that. And, oh, really? Is it that bad? Okay. Now, on your first reason, yeah, you're right. There are flexibility goals which has loopholes, which is, if you look at the history of them, they've walked through their loopholes before and they didn't meet them, so that was good. On the 2020 and the 2030, that was good. The link to Russia was a very interesting kind of point, because Russia, may or may not turn the gas off to some of these countries or raise the cost, and there's some talk about the U.S. selling more natural gas to Europe, so you have to figure that in the equation. Your summary was good. Your conclusion was good, and you tied back to your analogy of the ice cube in the oven. You used most of your time. What were your 3 goals that you left them blank? So you always want to have 3 goals.
Handwriting down there that I didn't really know what it was.
Your handwriting?
On the one in the packet. I just didn't know what the goals were, so I left them blank.
Okay, goals would be things like speak louder, not pace.
Not pace will be one of them.
Yeah.
My goals. Are these my goals for next time, or they were my goals before?
Well, they should have been goals for this time, but let's do it for next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
My goals will be to not pace.
Yeah.
To make more eye contact with individuals. I feel like I was kind of just all over the place.
On the top of the heads, kind of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And my other goal will be to make sure that my research includes background information like you were talking about global warming, and not just necessarily the issue at hand.
My other suggestion, Emma, would be to fully cite your citations and say, Professor Jones from Harvard, in his landmark study in 2014, concluded that we're in grave danger. We've passed the tipping point. See? And so then, oh my God, this Harvard professor says we've passed the tipping point? Oh my God, we must have. Yeah. So, I would put that as a goal, too. Other than that, you did a nice job. Thank you. Any more volunteers? I'm very generous with volunteers.
I'll go.
Praise the Lord.
But here's the thing, Professor. I have a written speech, but I don't have an outline. I mean, would that be okay to submit it now? Because I remember you saying it that, the outline has to be submitted after your visual own kind of critique. after you watch the YouTube. So I didn't make the outline, but
You don't have one to give me.
Yeah.
You missed that part of the instruction. Even though everyone else was handing me one beforehand, right?
But, but the point is, I asked you that particular question last time, and you said that you submitted with your own critique, which you will form on the.
Yeah, well, you don't have one to give me, right?
No, but I have the speech. I mean, I can give you the speech.
And I told you that second part of the instructions were you to have your speech on a card, which you worked from, not on a big piece of paper. Do you have your speech on a card?
No.
You notice everyone had a card here. So maybe we better wait for a little bit for you. Okay, so you can have a copy for me and have it on a card.
Okay.
Any more volunteers? Thank you. Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations? Because I feel like my heart is about to just.
My heart is about to break.
I'm so nervous. I'm shaking.
Uh-huh.
And depending on what you say, I might go, but I'm just nervous.
Okay, well, there's nothing to be nervous about. You're among friends. You should be breathing right now. You should be visualizing that it's going to go well.
Can I say something? Yeah. When I got up there, I know it doesn't sound like it, but you can find friendly. Everyone looked so friendly that it puts you at ease.
Rhoda over here is a very nice person.
All right, I'm going.
So look at her a lot. She's very nice.
Everybody has to do it. You're just first.
If you vomit, it'll add to your time.
I know.
If you vomit, it'll add to your time. Okay, that's the first. Teresa, yeah.
Aseret. By the end of the quarter, you have
I will get it, yeah.
I hate interviews. I hate speeches. Ugh. Right.
Okay, give me a moment to put my fingerprint in my I6 and reset the button. Okay. The time hasn't started yet. She's managing the attention. She's doing something over there. Communicating respect non-verbally. Finding friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name. Feel the love. Start your speech.
My name is Aseret Arroyo.
Hi, Aseret.
Massacre, blood, violence. Imagine waking up in Mexico to a family member being murdered. That is the reality of many families in Mexico, including my own. Today, I will be talking about or answering the question that many of us want to ask, but so many of us are afraid to answer. Should the Mexican president, Enrique Peña Nieto, resign? My answer to that, he should absolutely and immediately resign, and he should take responsibility for all the murder and recent corruption that has affected thousands of Mexican families. It is important to you and to me because everything that happens in other countries directly affects us. The cross-border violence that has been seen in the recent decades has only increased. My first reason why is because Enrique Peña Nieto political revolutionary party that he belongs to, which is the PRI, has recently, it has recently turned back the clock on politics. According to Al Jazeera America, ever since he became president, he has taken actions to reduce the Congress. To reduce the influence that Congress has over all of his executive decisions. All of the executive decisions that he has made has been because he has bypassed Congress. In such a government, from 1997 to 2012, the Mexican government was turning back its clock and trying to, oh my God. Can I just stop?
You're doing fine. You're doing fine. Just tell us about it. Just tell your story.
Okay. My first point is that ever since Enrique Peña Nieto's political party took charge of the Mexican government, he has bypassed Congress and taken all of decisions to himself. He has promoted executive power. which means he is turning the Mexican government into similar to the North Korean government, which is a dictatorship. A dictatorship, as we all know, is very dangerous because it promotes executive action and it bypasses all of the decisions that Congress has made. He is ignoring the millions of voices of many of the Mexican people, and a lot of the people are suffering because of that. Poverty levels have risen, and a lot of the violence and corruption has also gone up. My second point, and a very important point, is the attacks on journalists has also increased. Recently, 43 students were murdered at the hands of the government. These students were on their way to an educational protest, and they were murdered, disappeared, never to be heard from again. Families never received answers. Enrique Peña Nieto, according to The Economist, said that that wasn't his problem, and that local authorities should attempt to resolve this problem. He later retracted on that government, but it was the initial attitude that he took towards his own people. These 43 students have not been found. None of their bodies have been found. The families have had no explanations as to what happened to these people. This happened last year. No investigation has been launched by the FBI, nor by its own government. My third and final point, according to The Economist, the demand to break his party's grip of violence is being addressed. This political party that Peña Nieto belongs to is a very dangerous one. It has taken over the Mexican government for over 71 years. It has taken a hold of the government, and it has changed laws, it has changed systems, and a lot of the federal government, a lot of the federals that work for the police force are involved in organized crime and gang activity. This also adds to the many millions of problems of the Mexican people, because when somebody is murdered, about 6.2 of the crimes are reported. People are afraid of their own government. They are afraid to tell because now they don't know whether this police officer works for the same person or for the same crime, for the same organization that murdered their family. This affects millions of thousands of people, especially my own. In summary, I have provided 3 reasons why Enrique Peña Nieto should take full responsibility and should be held accountable for all of the recent murders. First, he has completely changed the government and turned it into a dictatorship. Secondly, he has promoted more violence, and a lot of people and children have paid as a consequence of this. Thirdly, the PRI, which is the political party that he belongs to, is still operating under the same corrupt system that has operated and taken over Mexico's government for over 71 years. My conclusion is, after this speech, there should be no doubt in your head that Enrique Peña Nieto should resign immediately. No more massacre, no more blood. Our people's blood will not be shed. You should all care, and we should all care, because as the most powerful country in the world, or one of the most powerful countries in the world, we should take full responsibility, and we should try to help these people. Thank you.
Thank you. 5:46.
Can I try it again next week, because this was awful?
Well, you did fine. Let's give you some feedback now, and we'll talk about ways you can improve. Let's go to the rear here.
So,
stand up for Jesus.
I'll stand up for science. Hi, I'm Gabe.
Hi, Gabe.
I thought you were good. It's just like I'm in mock and I tell a lot of like my kids this, that they think they're like really they're really good on paper, and then once they got there's the confidence thing. But once you get like you started off shaky at the beginning. Once you start a few minutes went by, you just I know inside you're probably like, oh crap, I'm sucking right now. But it's just the mentality. Like once you started to get the confidence, started walking a little bit more, it just it kind of like started getting better. So yeah, just be more confident. I mean, you know your stuff obviously, and it's a personal topic for you. So using that passion and everything instead of being worried about how you're looking or anything would probably help a lot. But I mean, I liked it. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, that was kind of like an improvement too.
Okay, it's mostly positive. Thank you, Gabe. Gabe talked about confidence and stay in the power stance. I want to say something about confidence, which is if you feel you don't have it, fake it until you make it, and walk up there like, oh, I've got the world by the handle and I'm going to do this and it's going to be great. And so you have to sometimes fake it and seem to be confident even if you don't have it. And when you stumble, don't call attention to it by saying, "Oh God, may I start over?" Just, well, yeah, pause and go on and keep making it work. Improvement.
Everybody, I'm Hago.
Hago.
This is my second time taking a class, so see, it's
Great.
not just your name that you.
You're a brother name.
Yeah,
okay.
One thing that I would definitely try to improve on is I feel like you're kind of rushing through it a little, and that's why you finished pretty quick. You had like a minute and a half to spare, maybe a little more than that.
Yeah.
So if you work on that pace, I think it would have made the speech a little more clear.
That's a good point. So you used 5:46 that you had 7:15 to do. Asherat, am I saying it right? Yeah. Let's talk about your intro first off. You said massacre, blood, violence, corruptions. That's how many Mexicans describe Enrique Peña Nieto's presidency. And you said, including my own family. I was intrigued by that, and I thought maybe you were going to go into that a little bit. I don't know if it's too painful or something, but that would have been interesting if you had a personal story. My aunt and uncle that live in Guadalajara or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Would have been a very interesting story to start with, because we can start with a poem, a story, a quote, a joke. Maybe a joke wouldn't have been appropriate for a serious speech like this. But you have a lot of choices that you can make, and you chose to use, strong words, dramatic words, to have a dramatic introduction. I'll say it again to everybody. If you haven't remembered, put the word repeat after your question on your script, on your prompt, on your car. Repeat the question, so for emphasis, so the audience knows what your question really is. Should he resign? I repeat, should he resign? And I say, hell yes. Yes, he should. And I'm going to give you 3 reasons why. Broom, broom, broom. And go into them. And then I think your significant statement was pretty good, but could have been a little bit longer and could have sold it a little better to us, the drugs that are coming over from Mexico, etc., affecting families here, etc. On your main body, your first point was that he has basically neutered the Congress and made them a rubber stamp organization and taken completely their decision making away. What I didn't get from you was a quotation from an expert that talked about this. I noticed you had a citation here, and you said, according to Al Jazeera America, but I didn't get the date and who said it on Al Jazeera and that sort of thing. And so you want fuller citations of your information. The second one was the attack and the unfortunate attack on the journalists and children, and his stupid statement that this is a local problem. That was very telling, and that was good. And then your third and final reason was old and corrupt ways. Again, you kept quoting The Economist, what date, who wrote it in The Economist. You just kept saying The Economist, and said, well, that is a good source, and it rings in my ear. The date and then the source of it would have made it even more credible. Your summary was fine, your conclusion was fine, and your tie back to your intro was fine. It was just a little short, and you got it done. So thank you.
Thank you.
And by the way, what will happen if you practice more aloud and watch yourself on YouTube and see how you did, but practice aloud. It's not with some live person listening to you. It's not the same doing it to a mirror. and ask them to hold your cards and try to deliver it extemporaneously, just in your own words. It'll be much more effective.
Okay.
Thank you. Another volunteer? No more volunteers? Come on. It's easy as pie. No more volunteers? Well, the camera's rolling. I got plenty of battery life left. Okay, here goes.
I will volunteer.
Thank you.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you.
Alright.
And your name is Alan, right?
Yes, so.
Hard to screw that name up.
Okay.
Okay. Alan, can you stand back a little? Yeah, you're very tall. Okay, Alan stands before you managing attention, communicating respect, non-verbally. She's texting. Oh, she's timing. Okay. I like this story. Yeah, okay, she's timing. Managing attention. Everyone looking up at you. If they don't, just clear your voice. Okay. Communicating respect non-verbally. I think the fist over the hands is not so friendly, so just relax them. And, No.
It is kind of stressful,
Yeah, okay, I understand. 5 friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name. Feel the love.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Great. So, today we're going to talk about Iran's situation and a nuclear deal. But before that, imagine you're in 10th grade and you're expelled from school. But why is that you're expelled from school? It's not because you got bad grades and stuff. It's because you just had a reasonable argument with your teacher over the public official religion of your country. That's what happened to me. I'm actually an immigrant, first-generation immigrant. I came here a few days before Obama got elected. So as a 16-year-old kid in 10th grade, I got expelled from my school, one of the best in the country, because I had reasonable arguments, always didn't believe in God. So I thought I had it bad, but since I've come here, people are struggling to get food, to get medicine, to get shelter in Iran. The economic status is extremely bad. People get stabbed on the street because they disagree with the regime, and that's just something really horrible. But let's get back to what we're trying to do today, which is, can the Iranian negotiators negotiating with the permanent 5+1 group of the Security Council reach a deal that the Supreme Leader Khamenei can agree to? So again, we're trying to see, can the Iranian negotiators reach a deal that is acceptable by Ayatollah Khamenei? So let's start by what my opinion is. I think that he will actually approve any deal that comes out of the negotiations. Again, I think it will, but we'll talk about that later. But before we get into that, why do you think you should care? I mean, it's halfway around the world. There's literally a 12-hour time zone difference, so why does that matter? Well, in the Middle East, there's a terrible situation of nations balancing each other. So if you have Iran trying to get a nuclear weapon, then you have a nuclear arms race, which is practically going to be terrible for the balance of power in the Middle East. The reason would be that Lebanon, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, all these countries would want to have nuclear weapons, and my guess is that many of these countries are state sponsors of terrorism, and I bet that one of them at least will get into the hands of terrorists, blowing up in Manhattan, LA, Westwood. What do you think about that? So it's better not for Iran to have a nuclear program, and they know it, and we know it, and this is what the talks are about. In late 2013, they reached a temporary deal. It stretched all the way to late November 2014, and now it's extended into late June 2015. But the actual problem is that these are just temporary deals, and there are different opinions on if they're going to be able to achieve a permanent solution to this problem. So why do I think that Khamenei will actually accept any solution coming out of the negotiations? So one of them would be the fact that the Iranian economy is basically in shambles. There's been, since 2012 and 2013, where terrible sanctions have been applied to Iran's economy, there's been a 5% shrinkage of the economy in Iran. There has been 50% inflation rates. The rial, which is their currency, have plummeted more than 70%, which is really terrible for their economy. These things all contribute to the pressure that is from inside the country for Khamenei to accept what they propose. The second solution to these problems would be the fact that any public official running for office has to be pre-approved by a council that is basically appointed by the supreme leader. So any public official speaking on TV, on radio, in parliament is basically mirroring his beliefs, which is a pretty messed up system because you cannot basically vote for anyone disagreeing with him. The third thing would be the fact that if he doesn't approve of this deal, because of inside and outside pressure, there will be a challenge to his power, which is pretty rare. There will be public demonstrations, and the president knows that. He's a moderate, and he has actually called for public referendums, which is basically really rare. This only happened once in the 70s. Of the deal that's going to happen. So he's probably not going to have a challenge to his power and basically give a little room to the moderates. Now, what do I think about this deal? For these reasons, I believe that there will actually have a pretty good chance of Khamenei accepting what the P5+1, which is the 5 permanent members of the Security Council plus Germany, negotiate with the Iranian negotiators, because the economy, because of the fact that they're basically every public official, including the president and his cabinet, are mirroring his own beliefs in the first place, and the fact that he won't have a challenge to his power, even if that means giving up a little power and agreeing with the moderates. And again, I don't believe that. He will strike down the deal if a deal is reached. So, why do you think that matters? I believe the sanctions will, if lifted, help the Iranian economy. I don't agree with how the regime is, but I would rather have people not starve and have proper shelter than, being expelled in 10th grade. So. That was basically my section. Thank you.
It's 23. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alan? We're over here. This place.
Hi, Ben.
Hi, Ben. Positive?
So congratulations on completing the speech. The positive things I'd like to say is you looked incredibly comfortable up there, possibly to the point of being casual, you're just kind of laid back, telling us how it is. I mean, it was very apparent that you know what you're talking about, from the personal connections to just kind of just dropping the facts, all right, here's another fact, here's another fact, here's another fact. It was very clear that you understood the topic that you were talking about, and you were very comfortable being able to talk about it, without any note cards or anything like that. So that was cool. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. Improvement?
Hi, I'm Mina.
Hi, Mina.
I think Alan Two things that come to mind. I think right before you started, the professor said this pose was kind of not the most like encouraging. But I think you, by nature, you went back to this a lot. And then I think with points you tried to emphasize it with this. And so I would say next time, like be more aware of your hands. I think you can use your hands to like help you with your points, not just going back to this motion. And I think the other thing is just watch the ums, and I think like, you know, like the words that you continue like to try and, you know, give yourself time while you're talking. I think as long as you fix that, because when you're not saying the ums, your information is really good. But I think when you do say it, it's a little bit distracting. So if you practice more, I think you can take those out and be more effective.
Okay, those were good points. Thank you. Let's start at the top.
Okay.
You told a personal story about getting kicked out of the 10th grade over an argument with a teacher about your not believing in God.
Yes.
And somehow we tried to link that to the Iranian talks that were going on in 2013 to 2015. This is, folks, what I meant by kind of a stretch, kind of an abrupt transition from a story into the topic and into the question. So I appreciate what you were trying to do, but I don't think it was executed quite exactly as you wanted it to be. Okay? Appreciate that you repeated the question so everyone knew exactly what you were trying to get at. Will the Supreme Leader accept this deal that's being struck? And then your answer was yes. Your preview was a little fuzzy in the top there, but make that clear for 3 reasons. And then go to your significant statement. And I think that you made a pretty good try at making it significant to your audience and making us care about Middle East peace and a nuclear arms race in the Middle East and terrorists getting a nuclear suitcase bomb or something like that. So that was pretty good. Now, on your first reason, you talked about the fact that the sanctions are working and that, you know, somehow that he wants them to be lifted, and you talked about the horrendous conditions in the country. The economy shrank, inflation is way up, and the currency has shrunk. And I guess I would have liked you were using yourself mostly as an expert, and I would have liked to have some arguments from authority. And I know you did have some citations in here, but you didn't cite them, and you didn't say, so according to The Economist, according to Reuters, according to the New York Times in 2014, the sanctions really seem to be having an impact not only on the people of Iran, but on the Supreme Leader. There's no question the sanctions are hurting the people, but he's living like a king, like a god. He's not hurting whatsoever. Does he care that his people are hurting? I'm not so sure. So I'm not so sure I was persuaded by your point, but nonetheless, you made the point, and convincingly, that the sanctions are hurting. On your second reason, you talked about the fact that the president and the Supreme Leader appoints most of the political leaders. What I needed to have you do is, again, have an argument from authority and link that to the talks. Link that back to your thesis. Okay, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Your thesis, which is the talks will work. They will accept the deal being struck because of the nature of the political appointees. They do what he says, I think is what you're trying to get at, right?
Yeah.
And they're just yes men. And so if he says yes, they say yes. I think that's what you're trying to get at, right? Yeah. But that needed to be argued from authority to be more convincing. And then finally, you didn't quote Slate. You didn't tell us it was from Slate and what year, even though it was 2015. You talked about this whole idea that the people are going to have a referendum or somehow rise up. And I'm, frankly, wasn't persuaded by the evidence that you presented. They had some chances before and did not. I hope you're right. I fervently would like to see some kind of democracy or relief come to the Iranian people. But I don't know about how much the Supreme Leader will take the results of this referendum and how much that will impact the talks, which is what your thesis had to be. Your summary, your conclusion were okay. Your tie back when you watch yourself tonight on television is, you'll see that it was kind of fuzzy. You didn't really know how to tie back to your 10th grade, getting kicked out of the 10th grade, and then you go, oh, that's my speech. That's it, folks. What's up, Doc? And I didn't see 3 goals. What were your goals for tonight?
Well, now that I've done the speech, I feel like one of them would be to, because it's very different practicing it in my room with no audience than being in the front, of the classroom and speaking to 20 people. So I would say bring note cards just in case you forget to code them or cite your pages, because I was trying to do that, but then I completely forgot. And the second would be to basically not do that. So even though it's really awkward, you know, having your hands down here and speaking, it's like, what am I going to do with these? So.
Just let them be, let them move as naturally as you can. One thing I'd like you to give me a count on that will help you make it more vivid to yourself is give me a count by next week on the number of times you said during your speech. And the camera doesn't lie, and that will make you aware of it. But you have friends, and so ask your friends to listen to your mother, your lover, a homeless guy, somebody, you know, and have them listen to you, because it really makes a difference when you're talking to an audience. Other than that, you did a nice job. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering. And by the way, you notice he didn't use notes, and that was what I was getting at with extemporaneous style of speaking. You know, he wasn't looking down and reading a lot, and that was good. Okay, the camera's rolling. We still have some juice in the camera. Oh, great. Thank you. Hi. How you doing? No name on here. Don't hate me, but write it first and last name on there. What do you think of that red battery? Do you think we'll get one more speech in? Yeah, I think we will. I'm hoping. Okay, she's managing attention, communicating respect, non-verbally, finding friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name, feel the love. Start your speech.
My name is Shireen Lankarani.
Hi, Shireen.
Socrates once stated, the secret to change is by focusing all of your energy not by fighting old problems, but by creating new solutions. Unfortunately, in the case of South Yemen, the South Yemenis are more focused on fighting a 20-year conflict with the North rather than creating solutions to solve this problem. Therefore, when faced with the question, will South Yemen be successful in gaining independence from the North, the answer is a clear no for 3 main reasons. First, South Yemen is unorganized. Second, the strength of the Houthi rebel group precludes secession. And finally, for financial motives, the South Yemen will be unsuccessful in gaining independence. But why Yemen, such a small country, is important to us? In fact, Yemen's geographic location in the Middle East indicates that if instability does rise, it could spill over to other countries, which would have significant ramifications for the United States. Further, one of the busiest oil ports is located in Yemen, indicating that further, if instability does go up,